Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Islam for Europeans. Welcome to the new year of 2025. I'm your host, Robert. Please like and subscribe to the channel. So, so many events happening in the last week or so. You know, the old quote that goes, you can have no, what is it, decades of history in a couple of days, or a couple of decades with no history. Well, this is definitely one of them. But I wanted to talk about I guess the grooming gang trials that went on in the UK. Now, these have been going on for quite some time. The events of the crimes committed by these gangs are horrible, horrifying beyond description, really. Um, you can look it up on the internet if you like, but they just go beyond the pale of what is acceptable, what should be acceptable to any Muslim. These people should be punished to the full extent of the law. Their actions are completely unacceptable. Islam does not teach us to do any of these horrible, horrible acts. You cannot even touch a woman of the opposite gender, let alone, give them alcohol or any type of drugs or engage in any type of sexual act with them. So let's get that out right out. Let's get that out right off of our chest right away. Now, who are the people who are involved in grooming? Well, there's a huge debate about that going on social media. Now, I was going to make this, about the fact that, Muslims, you have to be very wise about how you respond to these things because social media is the absolute cesspool of the Dawa scene. In fact, it's the anti-Dawa scene. When you look at, opinions on Muslims in the United Kingdom, 40% of non-Muslims have no opinion, neutral one way or the other, of Muslims, and 35% have a positive opinion. But, the more we go on social media, the more we falsely believe that everyone is just the most obstinate, racist hater. And I think that's what's going on here. You have people who are hiding behind a screen, who are, challenging, this very narrative that most of the majority of the groomers were white, which proportionality wise is actually not true. I'm going to delve into that in a few minutes, but just the fact that you have people that are absolutely enraged and livid in the UK, finding out all the details, all the gory details of what had been going on. Um, you know, perhaps this is a time to be a little bit more conciliatory, to perhaps either explain to them that Islam does not allow these actions. And I can understand why, some Muslims don't want to do that, because you're talking with people on the internet who absolutely hate Islam and or immigration, and you're not going to change their opinions one way or the other, right? But what does happen is that they so say things like it's deport all Muslims, and this the Pakistani culture and so on and so forth, and then Muslims will normally clap back and start making it a racial argument, saying making fun of your white father for playing the race card. And what this basically does is just serves as the perfect recruiting poster for more neutral white people to join the ranks of the right, specifically the anti-Islam right, right? And it is just it's not good either for converts or for the Muslim community in general, because all it does is just absolutely enrages people, right? And so if you read this, a tweet from Mohammed Hijab, Home Office researchers now tell us that research has found that group-based offenders are most commonly white. So, and again, why should we even, again, this argument is gonna go back and forth. What is the percentage of these grooming gangs? What's the ethnicity of these grooming gangs percentage-wise? One could very easily say, and this is what somebody pointed out, that it's a case of attrition bias or survivorship bias, because there's so many of these cases in which the police were afraid to arrest the perpetrators and prosecute them, that they were afraid that it would cause a race riot, and those cases never got these people never got convicted, or deported or sent back. So um, and it's absolutely unfortunate that that happened. I mean, they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law, but um, it just shows that if you don't, research is very fickle, and there are so many biases involved in research that someone could easily, very just as easily, come to you and say, hey, this is incorrect. I mean, what is wrong with just admitting this is a horrible action? It should never happen. Just admit it's disproportionately Pakistani men, or Asian men, that are doing this relative to the population of the UK, which is still 82% white. Um, and I feel the same way about white grooming gangs. I mean, they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law as well. But by just focusing on you know who's like the most commonly like associated, like more likely to be involved in a grooming gang. People are just enraged right now, and this is just total clickbait. And I guess if you're a born Muslim who has no Muslim non-Muslim family members, you can say whatever you want on social media, and at the end of the day, go home to your Muslim family, and and say, okay, well, that's great, I did my work for today. And then meanwhile, you're just enraging the entire public against Muslims, right? If you're a convert, obviously you're going to be a little bit more careful about what you say. You know, one comment could get you kicked out of the house or written out of the will. And you're just creating an environment that makes it impossible for, white people in the UK to convert to Islam and not be seen as a complete and total traitor at this point. And it's going to get worse. I mean, the horrific details of these grooming gangs, they go part and many of the other horrible things. Okay. And, people, hold on a second here. Check, 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 1 2 1 2. Check, 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 1 2 1 2. Like people are upset about the economy. The economy is absolutely horrible in England. I mean, the amount of money that you pay for tuition, just to try to get a better job, for a house, for not being able to afford an apartment or a house because of the housing crisis. Um, I don't see it getting any better. I mean, you know, and I always, use this analogy that Muslims in Europe are on a bus, and this bus is headed off of a cliff. Islamic spokespeople, instead of applying the brakes or turning the bus, they just put their foot on the gas, and it's the results are absolutely disastrous. And and what Muslim besides myself is commenting on this, that we should be using this as a teaching moment to tell people that Islam doesn't allow these things, instead of just arguing over demographic data. Um, and just say, look, it's a horrible event. It should never happen. Islam condemns, these actions, and the perpetrators should be brought to justice. What's so hard about saying that? But because it's turned into such, a racial issue, and Elon Musk is, he's got it's his website. He's the one, posting about, how these are Muslim, Pakistani grooming gangs and whatnot. That's just perfect. He's just serving as a perfect instigator. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that he's going to get a rise of Muslim accounts, that they're going to, clap back and say that like, oh, it's more likely to be white grooming gangs and stuff. Again, you shouldn't even call them Muslim grooming gangs. I mean, this has nothing to do with Islam. It's the complete opposite of Islam. So yeah, I mean, it's just a wreck, a train wreck. And the more you stay on social media, you just get so extremely depressed. It's unbelievable. Um, you know, and I don't expect other Muslims to care about what I'm saying in this regard. They're angry, they're upset, and they see these instigators on YouTube who are the absolute worst haters, and they're just gonna clap back and go full throttle on their screen. Um, It's like taking your most Islamophobic uncles and your crustiest uncles at the masjid, putting them in a room together, giving them each an iPhone, and having them yell and scream at each other via text, and then displaying them to the entire world. I mean, then you could say that I'm being soft, but what is the point in that? What good are you going to gain out of this, keyboard warrior nonsense? So I think us as, white Muslims, we need to stick together. I think that the situation is so bad, and the two-way animosity between our co-ethnics and our co-religionists is sky high, and we'll have allies on both sides. Sure, some people will support us, some Muslims will support us, some of our own non-Muslim community will support us, but we need to stick together because no one's going to be able to do that for us. These two worlds, not only do they absolutely hate each other, but they're absolutely apart from each other. They don't, hang out with each other. They don't talk to each other except via these arguments on social media. They don't open the door for one another. It's up to us. But this is what we need to do basically to survive as European descendant Muslims. And on a final note, this is what's going on in the UK. In Canada, we don't have this problem. There's many thousands of Pakistanis in Canada. Grooming gangs are non-existent in Canada, as far as I know. So it's definitely a cultural thing, specific to certain areas of the UK, and not something that has to do with, Pakistanis in general who come to Canada. It's just that the overwhelming majority of these Dawa accounts are in the UK because it's almost like it's the international, I call it the internationalization of Dawa. Like the situation in the UK, okay, that's a specific situation, for Muslims living in England, right? I've never been to England myself, but that's not the same situation as Muslims living in the United States or Canada, or even, other areas in continental Europe. So, we should, in a world without social media, it would be a lot easier to, like just have your own, like people based on your own nationality who understand the specific situation of the people in that country, be your spokespeople. But if people were to look at like these Dawa accounts in the UK, outside of the UK, pretty soon we're going to become the UK. I mean, they're instigators. I mean, they see nothing wrong in instigating people, and that includes, unfortunately, people who are just otherwise wouldn't care. They just wouldn't care about these whole things, until they see, these kinds of posts, and they just basically become, recruiting posters for the far right, or the anti-Islam right? So yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's my time for the day. I'll just leave it at that. I'm your host, Robert, at Islam for Europeans. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.